A very interesting fourth wall. But when you see the fourth wall, behind it is the first historic housing, urban form. So there is a tension between that modernist housing that you see in the back with apartments, and in the front you have the fort wall. And then the train station, the one of the metro stations, was in making the metro station, a lot of buildings got removed. Now there is one thing that you can say, oh my God, you removed that building, but they also removed that Maharaja Saloon was gone. And like a lot of buildings got removed. Here, Ahmedabad lost two of very important buildings. One is the textile mills, cotton textile mills, and it also lost a magistrate, a court magistrate. I don't have the photograph here. So it happened. But you try to use the memory of that time. We fortunately had a few drawings of these mills, and we converted them into large scale drawings and put them on the station itself. So, and the linearity of the station allowed us to, show the linearity of the factory building and so on and so forth. So it is some kind of a claiming of the space also. And these are some images from the train station. Yeah, this is on the right-hand side is that Metropolitan Court building, which does not exist. And it was the Kikada station comes there. So we have put these drawings there itself. Okay. How much time do I have? Like, please stop me if I'm going overboard and it's not a, let me know. Just flag it up. I'll stop immediately. So now coming to the second, the third form of spatial tense is the chronocaus, which can be seen in two. The word breaks into two forms: the chronos and the chaos. The chronos is time, which is the tense, and the chaos is the jumble, which is also the tense. Which brings that. All right, what is experimental? It translates to what do you do then with that understanding of spatial tense, and you can do experimental preservation. So this is one of the projects. I will not go through the details of the project. It's the Surat Castle. But what I wanted to highlight here is we were very fortunate, like when working on this castle, that we got a lot of archival material. We also got 1:50 scale drawings of the castle, like literally ground floor, first floor sections, and so on and so forth. But this we found out like when we were like almost 70% done with the thing. So what happens with these projects is that you keep discovering new things, and then you probably have to be responding to the new material that you find constantly. You might find it in the archives, like this, but you might also find it on the site itself. So we were constantly finding new things throughout the castle. Basically, the castle, we discovered that the site, which was always known to have been built at one point, has actually 4 layers of construction, which is evident in its construction system, like the way the brick and the mortar, the joints, and so on and so forth. And so when you discover that, you have to take a position, because conservation has always prioritized the earliest. But this is the palimpsest. This is the chronochaos. This is the layer. So what do? And some of the things that, very simply put, like that's a section in one of the walls in which we kept it open without plaster for people to see. So eventually it turned out that conservation became an opportunity to reveal the architectural history of the place. And it becomes a site where people can come and also normalize talking about architectural history amongst the citizen. It doesn't remain a connoisseur, doesn't remain an expert agenda. It just like infiltrates into people and they start talking in the same language. Like it's like cricket. People proudly use the language, and we also hope that people are able to use that technical architectural language with the same this thing. Without going into too much detail, we discovered yeah. So what looked like a bastion from the outside was like almost 10 feet thick, because from the inside also there was a bastion. Basically, what they had done, there was an earlier bastion, which they had consolidated later and put another bastion. That we discovered when we were taking the drainage pipes out. We discovered, okay, there is another huge bastion inside. So what we did is like we hollowed out a part of it for people to walk through. And so you are able to see on either side that, this was later and this was this thing. And here there is a little bit of liberty that is taken in showing the two sides. Like somebody conservationist can say, all right, why are you like taking why are you following out the historical layer and so on and so forth? But it's not doing anything anyway. And so using contemporary systems of consolidating, we are still able to reveal the two layers. So what gets prioritized here is that the building itself is able to tell its own history, that it's revealed and kept visible. So there are other such instances. We discovered a lot of historical layers, moats, foundations of an earlier fort, and so on and so forth. So this, and again, like constant re-verification from historical sources. We're very fortunate to keep discovering new and new archival material. The same place, we found like 4 maps at the scale, which showed how the space was used throughout 2 centuries or something. And we realized that this was one of the earlier entrances. Because we found the archival material later. This was a later restoration, which we tried to open up that, you can see this opening. This was the entry. But again, structurally speaking, behind this is 17 feet of masonry on which the upper story is standing. So this could not be hollowed out, and hence this entryway cannot be opened up. So you just keep the memory of it. So there are all things that have to take a balanced decision, whether it's whether you want to keep it revealed, whether it's possible structurally speaking, not, and so on and so forth. Where does the aesthetic come in? And such. So this is like, whenever you have a chance, please come and visit. So then how does it translate to, this is like, we think about all these buildings are like, layered histories, but what it also demands is to start thinking about hybrids. So what we could not do in that building, where we had to remove the trees, that question still remained. The first question that I had, that what are the ways in which the tree is becoming part of the building and consolidating it? We did an artwork, but then it's like not enough. Then we did that little small reparative measure of the cube, not good enough. And so we are thinking, all right, what can we do to this thing? And this is a question that we are taking up in a conservation program at the Foundation Studio. And we are like, all right, there is this tree that is integrated with the wall. And we want, what is the value of this photograph? So the value is that we also want the tree to remain, and we also want the building separate. That is, it's not the building is getting prioritized and so on. So then we devise strategies of like detaching it, letting the tree grow, working with the ground, maybe the tree roots, giving it a direction and so on and so forth. So your intervention is not limited to just the building. It also, we start looking at the ground, realities. Do you want to detach, not attach? And also like maybe we are just intervening in a small section, but that goes a long way. So we just did this microscopic, not a microscopic, but very small scale intervention with just one question. How can we ensure that the tree stays and the building also stays? And these are some of the drawings. One is a student, Kaushik, who did this first year student conservation. And so I will end my presentation with this one diagram that I recently found. It's called the corrosion map of India. And the corrosion map, you can see where we are located in Mumbai or on the western coast and all the way on the Gujarat. It's very high corrosion level. Now, this corrosion map is published by some engineering magazine. And they are saying, if you read the article, this thing is mentioned here, not I can share it with you. It says that right now, because concrete corrodes and modernist project happened when it happened in India, we are at the stage where we do not have a choice but to repair all that we constructed for all this time. And the amount of repair work that is being tendered in all cities is phenomenal. And what this project says, this article is saying, is that there is a lot of work, but we need more architects and more designers to think about this thing, because it requires aesthetic, it requires care and sensitivity. So rise of the repair industry is likely to become a parallel industry in the construction industry. And so conservation is going to be a very, very potent, very important hands-on industry very soon. And all these things like care, your ability to sensitively see what was historical, what is the construct of the object. It's the chaos of time that is visible on the object, your sensitivity towards that. It all comes together in your act of repair. And so I would stop here. So that was it. It was, thank you.
Thank you so, thank you so much for such an insightful lecture. The floor is now open to discussion. Actually, it was very pleasant to hear you. A wonderful presentation. Talking about the lens of a bioarchitect, I feel that this idea of repair, this idea of ecological as a tool to preserve, to conserve, it's a very, I would say it's a very counterintuitive domain to enter in. My question is, what is the biggest challenge when we look at the ecological as an indicator of repairing things? How do we spot, or how do we have a control on this viscous invasion that happens? I'm referring to those banded teams, I'm referring to those branches, because they, at the end, they kind of replace a certain volume of the building house. So definitely, it's an amazing idea to mitigate and wipe. But how do we manage the control of it? Because that's very challenging.
Thank you for your question. It's a great question, I think. And um, so I was reading also a lot of panels, and they were using the word Anthropocene. And to think like this is also to question the Anthropocene, but where the human was at the top. But to think that human is an equal participant in the ecological survival means that the human will also be in constant push and pull with other species. That means if the burger tree is invading, you are going to push back, right? Like you can't, like, it's not coming from an emotional, this thing, oh my God, banyan tree, and let's like, because you are going to push back. And if as an architect, you are providing for humans, so you will create space for the humans. That is our job. So I think that to understand that balance, and where I'm coming from is that how much, to what extent is it allowing for the consolidation? So we also did some very small experiments to understand that if we are interested in this hybrid format, where exactly is the tree going? It's not going in the bricks. It's going in the mortar. So that is your opportunity. Like, and there are a lot of experiments. I think there is some Ludwig, I don't remember the film, but I will link that article to you. They have devised that mortar, which allows not a biocement. It's something else. It's the mortar and how it's designed. The also the layering of the bricks and the mortar that allows the movement of the brick. Sorry, of the movement of the tree roots to travel. So the flexibility that goes into the joinery and the masonry, which complements the growth of the tree. So they work together. They are both living systems that way. So there is always going to be a pushback. Always, like, if to answer your question more simply, you know that Meghalaya root bridges. Now, root bridges, they are not like nature taking over. Every single day, they are hand sculpted. So there is some kind of, I don't want to use the word control, but there is equilibrium or something. So it's a difficult question, but it has to be answered. It's not like you let the thing take over. You always gonna be push back.
All these buildings that are made post-independence, and even before independence, but there are these newer kind of materials coming in, for example, the concrete buildings coming in, where the discourse around what we call this new discourse around modern heritage, that some pushback comments are that the life of the buildings in comparison to the stone buildings is not substantial enough for them to be even considered as in addition to whatever we call built heritage. So is it a good way to think about the repair into the discourse of foundation studies also? Then like these newer patches which come out into the world also are talking about like these newer kind of conservation methods that they can use into the discourse itself.
Thank you. Great question, and I might have a long answer to that. So let's keep the heritage word on the side for the moment. Heritage is very complex, but why this map comes up, and you placed in Mumbai, and you know in Mumbai there are like so many housing that are going into redevelopment, refurbishment. They're all real projects, right? Now the problem is that in housing, housing shortage um, is is a difficult construct. There is probably, if you do a study, there's probably not housing shortage because there is not enough houses. But housing shortage is there because people don't want to move from where they are. And their families are increasing, the sizes are increasing, and so on and so forth. They have attachments, they workplace, and so on. So the house, the real thing is that building where they stay, which is in a shoddy state. And that needs, and that is the cityscape. And those are the projects that are up for, and that is one thing. I'm going to give you an example of Surat again, like worker housing. Now, which phenomenal worker housing in the 1960s. Very generous spaces. Like Surat, I visited some of these historic 1960s housing, which had on the first terrace playing areas for children, and then also small setbacks to their individual houses. Like, and these are like very small houses. But it is a typology that developed, which was extremely generous in the time, and workers are still living there, but in really bad conditions. And one is like you bring them down, do it all over again. But then there is also like, in repair. And the state government in Surat Police Department, they have taken on this agenda of repairing their housing, and it's concrete housing. So that industry is definitely rising. There was another part of your question.
On population studies,
Mm.
how do you see that?
Yeah.
You are obviously introducing forces which are shaped around the idea of the
Yeah.
But each center is like we talk about how we are dealing heritage as a certain kind of adaptive view, for example. So there are these kind of involved into ideas of additions, extension.
The additions and extensions you can also do, like Sanskar Kendra is up for repair work, and it's gonna be reused, right? And Sanskar Kendra is concrete for a large part of it. So this is a real project. So keep the adaptive reuse outside. Repair, as I said, is something that is not visible, it's not glamorous, but it is the one that has to be done with sensitivity. And so that is where the discourse lies. And I think there are enough, like we can read Shannon Mattern and all, who've written a lot about what goes into repair and with care. Thanks. Yes.
Thanks, Sonal, for this wonderful presentation. And I think I've been following your work here with it. Also, there's a lot of different things you're doing. Like, there's some as an artist, I've seen those paintings that you've done, and then you now also making conservation programs. So there's a lot of your earlier work is going into shaping the program. And then you're doing actual conservation project. And I was just wondering, there are a few things, especially when you talk about ecology, when you show the image of ecology or trees in and around the area. Would you like to problematize the question of ecology and also perhaps unpack this whole idea of hybrid? Because somehow I feel there lies certain, there's a lot of cracks there. But for example, how you allowing nature to take over is one way. Do we see us as a nature being subset to the human? I think you were trying to get into that. Or do you see it as it's also politically correct? It's a relationship of give and take. So I'm just wondering that if you could perhaps might not be able to answer immediately, but I would want to see some work emerge where the theoretical or the philosophical basis of these terms is also recalibrated as to what you need today. And I'm very curious as to how you want to problematize this question of ecology and hence the question of hybridity, because there's a whole literature or scholarship around questions of hybridity coming from social sciences and cultural studies.
Yeah. So I mean, like, sorry, this is like not working at all. This, but thanks for your question. Can you make that? It's all right. It's fine. So it's a very difficult question. I'm also grappling with it, but one of the ways in which I have been able to access this question is by reading abandoned spaces, and more importantly, ruins of post-industrial landscapes, especially quarries. And it's also not the absence of human agency there, but a receding. So when it recedes, the other life forms take over. And then If you see in detail, how are they beginning to exercise their agency in flourishing is a great example. And I try to break down ecology into very basic scientific, physical, chemical, and biological processes like gravity, speed, force, and so on and so forth. It breaks down, it detaches us from the sentimentality. But it also helps us see, here, all right, if you look at like especially in Champaign, I'm sure you're familiar with that, the basalt quarry, there is, and it's also, again, I'm sure this phenomenon exists in a lot of other places. The grass grows only at a certain level on the basalt hill, not anywhere else. But then basalt is a very dense rock. It will not allow for water to seep in. How is the grass growing there? So then you start seeing that maybe it was the quarry that caused the cracks, and which is only on the face because the rest of the thing was taken away. The precise reason of its distress or what damaged it became the reason for the other things to grow. So I started like some of the projects by just mapping those processes, its vulnerability, which happened due to its demise, and seeing how it became an opportunity for the grass to grow and so on. So this book, which is in the making, I think it will be out in 2025. It's being published by Berkhauser. It's called Better Together. And in Better Together, and in that, it's like a lot of the theorization is happening, like at least at whatever stage I am in, then how do you start looking at ruins as classrooms, where we can determine these architectural parameters to design, like because, 2 or 3 different components are coming together and consolidating. So can that become an architectural lesson? So the whole book is devised on that. And I'm also like basing that thinking on Deleuze and Guattari writes these 3 plateaus, which is pretty much looking at ruins and assemblage. So that helps also to start looking at ecology in a very scientific way.
So when you talk about heritage earlier, and you talk about the politics that entwine with heritage, there's also a layer of identities that comes with these politics, where certain identities may ultimately state that one political history and that might be the point to identity for overlap. So during conservation and other processes, you have to sort of handle both identities to sort of you will be more to time and taking a fixed point in time in particular. So as someone who's worked in conservation with the idea to prepare, how do you sort of address these overlapping identities that involve in this stage?
A short answer to that is that I don't work with communities. So that's where I don't work. I'm not a social, my work is not ethnographic or social. I work with the object. And but definitely, and I think that is where I also problematize heritage a lot, in the sense that I'm vehemently against any such practice which stands on the outside and tells the people this is heritage and you should do this. And I have a lot of respect for the people, their buildings, how they see it, and I don't want to intervene in that. But once the project is up and, whoever that community is or whoever that agency is, they're saying, all right, we want to do this thing to our building. That's where I'm willing to step in. But I do not participate in that discourse. Yes. I'm very much conscious of the identity politics. And so, because I feel that to be a it's a very, very, I don't know who are all in the audience, and it's a very politically incorrect statement to say, but I really feel sometimes heritage becomes very oppressive when people, and literally it's an image in my mind, like, and I'm sorry, it's not personal at all, but I've seen people like, with bags and with notepads and caps and so on, and going around and saying, oh, I like this building, I like this building, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and then we do a lot of inventory, who are the people, what is the community, and so on and so forth, and then we reduce it to say this is important, this is heritage. Well, and from my experience, like even in Ahmedabad, they have put a brass tag, a World Heritage brass tag against all of these graded buildings. But if you go and talk to the people, they don't want to show you that brass tag. Buildings came down overnight after the World Heritage status was, because it is oppressive to people who are living there, because they were sure that people now are going to come and say, don't live like this. You can't make changes to their house and so on. And the identity goes through the roof. So, I think with all the sensitivity to identity issues, the way it's operationalized in heritage, at the moment, I'm very uncomfortable with that. So at the moment, I don't see myself participating in that, but maybe things change.